Talk about transitions, and there's a few fundamental values that I have when it comes to transitions that I'd like you to master for your own papers. First, we're going to talk about transitions between body paragraphs. How do we move the reader from one big idea to the next big idea? And then we're going to talk about the nitty-gritty transitions within the paragraph. One of the things you probably noticed with Ella's paragraphs is that within the paragraph, she had a lot of good transitional words that moved her thoughts forward as she went. I'm going to show you some easy ways to improve your transitions and get them into a habit. And not only that, but make them a little bit more diverse and varied. So when it comes to transitions between body paragraphs serve the same purpose as a hook or attention grabber at the beginning of your essay. The hook or attention grabber is supposed to take people's attention, wherever it is in space, and funnel it down towards your thesis. It's supposed to grab them and say, you ought to keep reading, how interesting. And then you move towards your claim. Well, the start of a body paragraph does the same thing, except it knows where the audience's attention is, the previous point. And so you're supposed to take them from the previous point you were just talking about and move them down into the new point. So the goal is to move the reader from the last topic to the current one, which means that they're always at the beginning of the paragraph. Now I know that it's possible a teacher taught you that you could put it at the end of the paragraph. That is and I see people do this. That's fundamentally wrong. Because once you establish what a paragraph's about, the whole rest of the entity of a paragraph is used to prove that point. You don't want to end on another point. You want to end on driving that point home. But the beginning of the paragraph is exactly where you need to move them from your previous point to your new one. So there are 3 levels of transitions. I've grouped them into 3 different kinds of ways of moving the reader from one body paragraph to the next in order to try to illustrate for you the different things you can do. There's 3 different levels or 3 different types of transitions. One of them is a single word or phrase that moves the essay forward. Words like additionally, also, on top of that, most importantly, secondly. You don't want to be really bland and repetitive with those, though. Once in a while, I get the student who must really admire the Count from Sesame Street. First paragraph, Second paragraph, Third paragraph, You don't want to count off. But a single word can at least tell us that you're moving on. There's also a second level of transitions, where you state the previous point as well as the new one. It's essentially saying, I was talking about that, and now I'm going to talk about this. So you say something like, in addition to appealing to logos, Blotman appeals to pathos. And so this would help you pass what I call the cut it up and throw it on the floor test. So if I took Claire's paper, and I maniacally, with a pair of scissors, cut all the paragraphs up and threw it in front of Caitlin and said, put it back together the way it was or you both fail. This would allow you to put at least 2 of them in the right place. Because you know that the last point was about logos, and so you can put it right after that one. It maps your essay. The final one is your third level transition that actually shows a relationship between 2 points. Blotman's appeals to logos using, let's fix that. Blotman's appeals to logos using his own studies also builds his appeal to ethos. So now, not only do we have one of the words from over here also, we have the 2 different ideas, like a level 2, but we see that there's a relationship between the ideas, and you're flowing from one point to the next smoothly. You do not have to do level 3 transitions all the time. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm at least level 2. And they will take the whole topic sentence from the previous paragraph and mush it with the whole topic sentence of the current paragraph, and it'll be like 4 lines long. I'd be like, no. You got to cut that down a little bit. A single word is okay for now. If you can't ever do the level 3, it may be that your paragraphs are out of order. For instance, people are going to talk about something that's flawed in the essay if they think it's effective, right? They're going to talk about the counterargument, and it's going to be flawed. Well, if you're talking about a problem with pathos in the counterargument, but one of your body paragraphs was about pathos being good, why aren't those two right next to each other? They're in conversation with one another. You're saying his appeal to pathos is good in one hand and maybe a little flawed on another. You put them next to each other, and you got a level 3 transition already pre-made for you practically. And you have an easy way to wrap back to your original point because it was right there. And so if you're never able to do the level 3 transitions, it may be because your points aren't connecting well enough and your paper needs maybe some reordering. Good writers, though, between body paragraphs will always have something. If I go back to the Glass Castle essays, this is a major thing that's missing from a lot of them. And so this is something I'd like you to work on when we start writing consecutive paragraphs. How's our time? Not good. Okay, on your desk, the example here, second line of this templates for writing, it says, Spot is a good dog. He has fleas. Well, that doesn't make any sense. By proximity, you're kind of implying that having fleas makes a good dog. You need a contrasting transition. Spot is a good dog even though he has fleas. You're kind of making the traffic go the right way, right? Here you're kind of switching gears. You're contrasting. The other challenge that writers have with transitions is they get into ruts. Do you ever get in those ruts where you say also like 15 times in the same paragraph by mistake? And you don't see it until Mrs. Rhodes has circled it every time. You're like, oh man. Well, instead of also, you can also say, additionally, there it says, and besides, furthermore, in addition, indeed, in fact, moreover, so too. Or contrasting, although, but, by contrast, conversely, despite the fact that, even though, however, in contrast, nevertheless, nonetheless, and so on there. And so I get that you can go online and find a thesaurus or whatever, but most students won't do that. But this easy reference guide could be right next to you as you're writing your paper, and you could pull some different ones if you find yourself getting into a rut. And varying your language in an academic paper is a very subtle way of making a stronger appeal to ethos as a writer. Because you're saying that you know more words, right? You say in addition over and over again, it makes you feel like you don't know enough words. Flip the page to quotations. So you could say, Blotman says, Blotman says, Blotman says, over and over again in a paper about him. But you could also say he argues, claims, observes, asserts, emphasizes, reminds us, believes, insists, reports, suggests. And that'll help you get out of ruts there. Now when it comes to quotations, very quickly, the basic premise is this. Quotations are like babies. They have to be wrapped in the warmth of your own words. Little baby quote. And so you don't want to drop them naked and quivering in the forest of your essay to die being eaten by a bear. You want to wrap them in your words so they're safe and sound little quotes. And you should make them so smoothly integrated in those words that it doesn't sound like you're transitioning from your words to their words at all. So you might say, according to Blotman, he states that, quote. Good writers are able to control their quotes like that and are able to integrate them so smoothly into their own words that if I verbally said it out loud, it'd almost be kind of hard to figure out where the quote starts. On the page, you got a quotation mark. But that's where we want to go with our quotations, and that's what we're going to try to do with what I call quote integration, where you choose the quotes and you integrate them into your sentence as though they're your words almost. You still indicate who they came from, obviously, but you want to make it smooth so that the reader is not herky-jerky around in the middle of your essay. And that's our lesson on transitions and quotes much more quickly than I thought it'd be.